Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold, so I might act a bit funny, but thank you to all my subscribers and welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to cover the way I use Cypress to see data onto the application. Alright, so I've got the services running. I even have my gateway running. I have all the other services running, so hopefully there will be no problems seeding the data. Right, and then the next thing I want you to see is the front end. So let me just get rid of this one and come to the front end. So this is the front end I'm running. You can see there's no data here. Let me just inspect. If I just inspect, go to the console, no data is coming through because I haven't seen the data into the database. So let's take a look at the Cypress test then. So this is a test I've already written, and I'm kind of like following the same convention as what Cypress is done for their Cypress World application. So I'm using TypeScript here, and I'm not going to go into so much details, but when I want to see data, this is how quickly I do it. Okay, and it's the same convention like we do for the backend. You know, when I want to use, you know, like we need the user token in order to see the data. So you can see here that I'm saying that in this test I'm saying before each could you get the, so I've got a function that is get keycloak user token, and in that function this is the expectation, and I'm passing data from the Cypress environment, which I will show you in a minute. And in that Cypress environment I have this, right? I have the client ID, the user name, password, and it says keycloak login, and client secret that I'm using to pass on to it. And then it's a post, and then in return, when it's returning, I want it to store into this variable. I'm logging the variable and I'm storing this variable into this variable here, back into the Cypress environment, so that I can use it for the rest of my test, right? So before I see the data, this is what I do. I get the token and I store it here. Now it's similar to what I've got here. Okay, so in order to get the user token and credentials, we are at the backend. Remember that I've gone through this before. Okay, so we need the client ID, the grind type, the username, password, and the secret. So we got secret, the username and password, and the grind type and ID. So it's basically the same. I may have said it in a different way, but it is the same. Back to what I'm talking about. So keycloak login and that. So this is the environment I've set up, and obviously this is where I'm passing a whole lot of stuff. So this is the client secret, the client ID. This is for the front end. One of this is for the back end, and one of them is for the front end. So yeah, the RAM name and the client ID. And so this is the where I say keycloak login is basically the URL. Okay, so go back to the test, and so that is what I've got here. Okay, those are what I'm passing on to this function. Okay, let me see if I can jump into that function. Okay, it just goes there. So let me look for that function. Keycloak, get keycloak user token. So this one is much more clearer. So the URL we are passing the URL there, the client secret. Method we are using username and password and ID. That is what we are passing here. So the grant is the same body that we pass on through the backend, the API test in Insomnia. So we got the grant, type, ID, username, password, and the secret, right? And then we getting back the response, storing into here, and then we are logging it and all that stuff, and we are using that keycloak. We are returning that response body. We are getting the access token, the same access token here. You see, that's what we are passing on there. So we get that access token and we return it. Okay, back to the test. See, we get it and return it. We return it, we store it in here, and then we save it into that variable here. We're gonna make use of that variable. So before we take a look at the data seeding for both the categories and the products, I want us to look at the file that we are using, the file that contains the data, and that is basically the features that we are using for these variables, okay, for these functions. Now the functions are in the command. You know, Cypress, that's how you do it, or you create your own support file and then pass it as a there's a way to do it, but normally I stick to what they already have. So we need seeding data. Okay, so this is the categories, and this is the function to seed category. This is the function to seed products. Yeah, so we take a look at the data that we are passing on, but in this function in Cypress, this is how you do it in Cypress. In Cypress, you've got cypress.commands.add. Okay, so you are adding some function to this command, okay, which is basically the command. What's the command for? The command is this support file command file for commands.ts. So in Cypress, you could define your functions here that can be reusable across your project or test. So the way to explain it would be, it's a centralized reusable logic. In the Cypress, it's a centralized reusable logic. It's for common actions such as logging in, filling up forms, or seeding data, and can be defined as a reusable command. Yeah, so that's what that Cypress commands file, that support file, is used for. It simplifies test cases instead of repeating long sequences of actions in multiple tests. You can call a single casting command, okay, and it extends the Cypress create a function functionality that isn't provided by Cypress out of the box. So you can just extend what you want to and a customer sort of a function and use it in your test. And it's a better way for organizing your work as well. Keep test scripts focus on test logic while complex or repetitive actions are extracted away from the test. So instead of writing all these inside the test that we've just taken a look, we separate it and then we just call it and make it look good. Let me show you what I mean by that. So instead of putting everything here and giving that long thing, so if someone was reading it, they'd be like, hey, what's going on? We separated it, and then we are using the side dot to call that function. It becomes part of the Cypress. You extend the Cypress functions to use it when you put it into that Cypress command file. So essentially, any function you put here, you call that function with the side command, and then you use it any way you want. Essentially, makes your life easier. Okay, so this seed, I give the name as seed category, so you can see how when you give it the name, it tells you, TypeScript tells you what it is, right? And then I say side of fixture, so we are telling it what feature to you, and Cypress understand this function. Whenever you call side or fixture, it knows that you are trying to get something from the features folder. So in my feature folder, we have a JSON file called categories.json. Okay, and then we are calling that category. Cypress understand this, so you don't need to worry about it. We are calling this categories.json. So when you tell Cypress side.fixtures, because you put your data into that folder called fixtures, Cypress understands it. You don't need to worry about anything else. And then we are calling the name of that feature, which here we got categories. And then we will take a look at these categories in a minute. And then we say dot data. Then data, that's the all the stuff in here, we store it as data. And then we want to use that data, and we say data.categories for each. So each of the categories inside this data, we store it. So we are getting the data from fixtures, we're getting all the stuff from the fixtures, and we are storing into this variable, or we store into this variable. There's another word for it. And then we are going through each of it, and then we are using these interfaces, and this interface is exactly what's written in the file. So we are following the convention of this interface. The convention of this interface is let's take a look at it. So the convention is so the convention of this interface is, we need a category ID and description of the category, the name, and what products, but these can be a null. Okay, now if we go back, so we saying go through this, and then we are saying cypress.request. This is what you do to make a request, to make requests basically. So you provided a method, and for us we are using the post method. Remember, we did the same thing in the API. And then we are passing on the URL. Okay, and then when we pass on the URL, is the same as what we did with the thingy, with the API test, because we pass on the gateway port. The gateway port, and then the API. This is the convention I'm following. Version 1/categories, and then we are creating a category. So this is the endpoint. Then we are passing this body as the body to it. So all these for each body, we are passing it through here. We are going to go through all that for all that list of categories. We're going through each one of them, we are passing it through as a body. Okay, and then obviously we need our headers. So in our header, the most important thing we are passing on here is the authorization, the bearer token. And in Cypress, we remember we are storing the bearer token. When we get the user token, we are storing it as this, and this is the reason why we store the user token when we create the user. Remember this. We are going through keycloak to get log in and get a user token. When we return, we store it as keycloak user token. Remember, we've done that. Okay, so in here we are getting the same thing. In Cypress, it's easy when you store stuff into the Cypress environment. You store it into the Cypress environment. You pass the data and you store into another variable in the Cypress environment, and then you are able to reuse this in your test. Okay, so we are getting that variable that we've already stored into the Cypress environment. And when I was saying data and I say variable, I meant objects. Okay, it didn't click in my mind. Yeah, sometimes things slip on my mind. And then we are saving whatever response, and then we are checking that response is a 200, because when we do all this, we say that is it a 200. And obviously if it's a 200, then our test has passed. So that's categories. Okay, Unfortunately, guys, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to end the video here. We'll pick it up on the next video. See you then.